This week's episode is in partnership with Intact Insurance, here for you and for everything you care about.
Hello, it's me, Jann Arden, and I'm singing to you from my bathroom studio. Hello. I'm just here sitting on the john. It's a beautiful morning. You should see the view out into my bathroom. And I've just been, no, I'm not sitting on the john. I'm actually in the tub. How are you guys? You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm here with Caitlin Green, Adam Karsh, and they are respectively in their own homes in Toronto, Ontario. How are you guys? How are things in TO?
Doing okay.
We're both good, I think. Can I speak on behalf of Adam?
Sure. Go ahead.
Great. We're good.
Everything's good.
Well, it's November, so put that in your pipe and smoke it.
That's right. I feel like all of a sudden the holidays are just approaching. My birthday is at the end of the month, so it's on the 27th. So I know, I'm a year older. So it's always weird. The holidays cram everything in. Like, at least it feels that way, because my husband's birthday falls on Thanksgiving. Then there's Thanksgiving. Then there's Halloween. And then there's my birthday. And then there's Christmas. And then, oh my God, it's another year gone.
Does time feel like it's going quicker because of COVID? I feel like the passage of time, I swear to God, it's Monday and all of a sudden it's Friday. It's Monday and then it's Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a very weird mode that I've been in this last 18 months. It just doesn't feel, obviously, when you're moving around, it's not quite as obvious that the weekdays are flying by.
Yeah, and I think since I've been back at work on the morning show that I work on, I can't even believe that I've been back on the air for as long as I have. And I just blink and it's Friday again. And that just keeps happening over and over and over again. And then all those Friday realizations pile up and quickly form a year.
Do either of you guys usually plan like a winter holiday? I know a lot of Canadians kind of do Palm Springs or Palm Desert, or they head to Florida, or they just some sunshine, because we do kind of deal with this for 6 or 7 months. So does that look like it might happen for either of you guys?
So this year, my in-laws have planned this big trip with the whole family. So us, our family, my wife's sister's family, my wife's brother's family, and we're renting a big chalet in northern Quebec, and we're going skiing. That's what we're doing.
That sounds super fun. I mean, it's not a beach, but
It's not a beach.
Where in northern Quebec?
I have to check. I'm not sure exactly. Like, it's not a popular ski resort, but it is a ski resort, and everyone in the family skis. It's every single member skis, so it's a worthwhile activity.
Is that before Christmas, Adam?
The week right after. I think we're leaving on Boxing Day.
Well, if you need someone to carry your knapsack.
You can join us.
I love Quebec.
Me too. I
got so excited when you just said that.
I haven't been to Quebec in ages.
Gosh.
You guys do Quebec quite a bit, you and Kyle.
Yeah, I love it. And I was wondering, because there's an area of Quebec, I think it's called Charlevoix, and they have a ski hill there called Le Massif, and I've never been. It's a little far from Toronto. I think it's past Quebec City. So usually we stick to like Montreal, Eastern Townships, Mont Tremblant, but I haven't been there, and I have been coveting going there for a ski winter trip, which is why I got so excited and lit up like a Christmas tree when you just mentioned it. So if you find out that that's where you're going, please let me know, and I look forward to your full review either way.
For sure.
Just before this all happened, in like that March when everything kind of fell apart, I had rented an Airbnb in Palm Springs. And I usually go a couple times a year just with girlfriends, and even 4 nights is fun there, because from Calgary, it's only 2.5-hour flight. So it's super fast, and it's very dog friendly. There's dogs all through the airport. You know, it really is very cool if you're a pet owner. Anyway, I got a reminder yesterday that, here at blah, 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 whatever company I'm using, we have your credit. We'd love to see you. The borders are open. Just a reminder, you have a selection of homes you can choose from. So I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to absolutely plan end of January or February, use that house. It's probably not the one I originally rented that took me 19 hours to decide on. And I'll just go and grab a couple of pals and fly down. Hopefully by then I'll have my booster as well.
Oh yeah, I hope that everyone can get their booster soon as well, because some of the data out of Israel on the effectiveness of the third shot is great. It is so fantastic. Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that can be a thing that happens soon. But I have, I've never been to Palm Springs or Palm Desert, and I have many. I know. You know what? I've never been to California.
Oh.
I've never been to LA. I've never been to San Francisco. So this is high on my list of places to go.
I know from your travel bug, you would absolutely love both places. Palm Springs is like a teeny weeny little mini LA. It's very craft driven. There's lots of artisans. Like on a Thursday night, back in the day, they closed off the streets for like 8 blocks, and you'd walk down there and you could buy anything under the sun. Like it just was really fun to walk down there. But Los Angeles, Caitlin, if you don't hit Venice Beach at some point in the next few years, you and Kyle would love it so much. They have I'm sure it's still there, but they just sell 501 Levi's, but they're all dyed, different colors. That's how specific this is. You walk in and it's vintage Levi's that have all been dyed like green and purple and red. And people are in there just like trying jeans on like maniacs. Anyway, it's one of my favorite little spots, Venice Beach. And the food is incredible. The Mexican cuisine.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And talk about plant-based stuff. I mean, there's just no end to the choices.
Yeah, we have really close friends that live in LA, and we have been dying to go. I've been dying to go, and I love comedy, and so it's like a land of stand-up comedy. I love entertainment. It's of course Hollywood, and we have pals there, and the food scene's supposed to be amazing. I'm obsessed with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, so I really don't know why I'm not going. It seems ridiculous that I haven't so far.
Well, happy to know they have tours. They have bus tours for the Housewives of Beverly Hills that you can actually go on.
Better.
Well, they did 2 years ago. You could get on these buses for like $59, and there's a tour guide, and here's blankety blank's house, and here's where and this is the restaurant where they had I'm not kidding you, and it's really popular.
Okay, so one of my close girlfriends, she actually was invited to this very fancy VIP event in London recently. And when she was there, she winds up seated at a dinner table, like two seats down from Kyle Richards, who is one of the stars of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And she just haphazardly posts this on her social, prefaces it with nothing, just like great night out with like this brand in London. And I instantly message her and I'm like, excuse me, why have you not led with this? Which is that you're having dinner with a star of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And she's like, oh yeah, I don't even watch the show, so I didn't know who she was, but everybody else was freaking out. Anyways, we're like besties now and we exchanged numbers. And she said I should come visit her in LA. And I was like, girl, we're planning an LA trip around this friendship only. Like that's the whole reason we need to go.
It could only be better if it was the above deck or below deck people for you, Kate.
Don't even get me started. My dream would be to have a friend who's way wealthier than me book a below deck yacht trip, and I would be so thrilled to go. I don't think I could even contain myself. Everyone else on those shows, they're just actual rich people, so they play it cool and they make all these crazy demands and act the way you would expect them to. The whole time, I would just be sitting there like a kid in a candy store with my head in my hands, so excited to see like Captain Lee. Anyways, this has become very inside my obsession with all things Bravo, but.
This leads me to my next. We have a couple of minutes left in this segment, but I do want to touch base on the Squid Game. And I have not watched it. My older brother, who was incarcerated for many, many years, he actually said to me, Jan, don't watch it. It's really awful. This is coming from a guy that could probably stomach anything. He's like, it would not be good for you.
It's pretty intense.
I know we've touched on it before, but it's still going. It's still trending as the number one show globally. So this is 6 weeks in now?
About that. I watched the whole thing. I loved it. It was one of the best things I've ever seen on Netflix.
Why did you love it, Adam?
It's tense. It's gory. I mean, that doesn't bother me, but it's it's intense. I loved it. I just love the premise. I love the concept. I love the cinematography.
Is there a protagonist? Does somebody win? Is that a spoiler alert?
I don't want to really, I don't want to say exactly, but
do they set it up for a second season?
Yeah, it could be. I don't think it needs a second season. I kind of wish it would just
end.
They're
going to.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm going to watch it.
It's all about the money.
Of
Absolutely, there's going to be a season. Caitlin, you guys watched it?
I won't watch it. Sorry, it's not for me. As I just cited off all of my Real Housewives obsessions, I like Succession. I don't just watch reality TV at all, but I do find that it felt like one of those things with the Squid Game that it kind of just, this isn't news to me. It isn't news to me that capitalism is destroying the world. And it isn't news to me that greed tends to win. And I feel like ever since watching, movies by Bong Joon-ho, who of course did Parasite and Snowpiercer and Okja, that I'm like, okay, I get it. And I get this like critique. And it already gives me such existential dread knowing how true it is that I was like, I can't watch it again. I can watch it if it's, a great piece of cinema or like a movie, but I just don't want to watch people get plowed down for sport from the super rich over and over again, episode after episode. I can't.
Well, you guys are a little younger than me, but when I think back to going to the drive-in with my parents, movies like Rollerball, there was very apocalyptic, dystopian kind of games. I can't remember, but it was very 70s. Soylent Green. Which was the movie about, at the end they find out that they're eating people. And
I'm sure that's already happening.
So there was all that kind of stuff going on in the 70s. I think the only problem I have is it just seems a little too close to home now. It seems like these types of stories are not that far away from our reality. And maybe I'm being super dramatic, but I will try and get my gumption up to watch the Squid Game because I feel like I want to know what's going on. Okay, this is the Jann Arden podcast. I'm going to watch the Squid Game. I'll be right back.
Not to freak you out, but things go wrong all the time. Accidents, flooding, fires, it's life. Crap happens. That kind of stuff can be hard to control. But what you can do something about is how you deal with it. For me, the trick to avoiding getting overwhelmed is having a plan. This is one of the reasons why I've partnered up with Intact Insurance, who know exactly where to start when something goes wrong. They're here to help and talk you through every step. First step, check out their great claims hub at intact.ca/claims to see how they can help you make the best out of a bad situation.
Welcome back to Jann Arden podcast. I'm here with Caitlin Green, Adam Karsh, and we have a special guest today joining us. And I actually got to work with this gentleman a little bit this year. His name is Anthony Q. Farrell. He's written on so many great shows. I would be remiss not to mention The Office. And I might even let you ask him something.
Ooh, thank you,
Adam, because I know you love The Office so much. Anthony Q. Farrell is launching a show. Actually, it launched last week, a couple weeks ago maybe, called Overlord and the Underwoods.
Ooh.
And it is kind of hearkening back to, if you ever saw Elf, or if you ever saw some of those sitcoms that were, Mork and Mindy. Uh-huh. I'm sure he'll use those as references because I've read about him and I know that he compares the show to things like that. But it's going to be a great conversation, so stick around for that. Mork and Mindy.
I love that show. I had a crush on Mindy. Pam Dauber.
Pam Dauber. What happened to Pam? Pam, are you out there?
I don't know. I had a crush on her. Mork and Mindy was like probably one of the first sitcoms I got into. I loved it. It was great.
Elf, I didn't really understand, to be honest.
I watched it.
But it was a huge
I don't think we
hit.
were meant to understand it.
Yeah, it was weird.
But I mean, when you're in a pitch, when you're going into the network and you're pitching these shows, like I can imagine them just sitting there on the Elf pitch going, okay, it's a puppet. And he'll like walk around and he's really gnarly. He was actually quite a grumpy little puppet alien guy.
Yeah. It reminded me of Garfield.
Garfield, exactly. I bet you it's ripped off from Garfield.
Do you know what ALF stands for? Alien.
Alien life form.
That's right.
Yes. I didn't really know that.
There you go.
You guys are both scaring me. You guys are scaring me intensely. What are you guys reading right now? Anybody, you guys readers?
Yeah.
I'm not a reader.
I just finished reading This Is Your Mind on Plants, which is a book by
Love it.
it's by Michael Pollan, who is one of my favorite people really ever to listen to or read. It's nonfiction, and it essentially explores how people have been looking to alter their state of consciousness through the consumption of plants since the beginning of time. And he looks at that through kind of three case studies. One is caffeine, one is opium, and the other is mescaline. And it's very, very fascinating. I absolutely love it.
What is mescaline? Sorry.
Like peyote, it's a type of cactus. It's like an extract from a cactus.
So is that sort of the root of tequila?
No.
Mescaline?
No. It is.
Because I know that it's made out of cactus plants. Is tequila not made out of cactus plants?
I think you're thinking of mezcal, so I certainly understand the confusion.
I'm sorry. See how up on my drugs I am? Did I not just show you my innocence?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
That's very nice.
My purity.
That was quite sweet. Mescaline is like peyote. It is a very intense hallucinogenic. And I don't mean intense in terms of you're necessarily going to have a bad time. It's actually relatively safe, statistically speaking, safer than a lot of things, especially alcohol, which is kind of what he gets into with all of these, conversations about drugs. And now that more and more people are talking about the use of drugs in mental health.
Ketamine and things like that.
Psilocybin, LSD.
Yes.
I think a lot of these things were kind of like brushed under the rug and treated as though, you were going to think that your eyeballs were melting and you jump off a bridge if you did an LSD and then as a result of that, they just shut down all studying of it. And so he's great. He's a professor at, I think it's...
Maybe we need to get him.
Oh my God. If we ever talk to him, if I had a chance to talk to him for any reason, I think my head would explode. He's fantastic.
So he's the professor at what university, Caitlin?
I think Stanford, and I want to say it's Stanford, or is it Berkeley? It's one of those two. And then I think he's done some stuff at Harvard. I could be butchering this, but he's very good.
So what was the gist of that for people that are thinking about reading your brain on plants or your mind on plants or your body on plants?
Like what was the general gist of it?
Like what was your takeaway?
I loved it. I just thought it was fascinating. I think that the history of what people have been doing kind of since the dawn of time is interesting. I think our relationship with any sort of mind-altering substance, caffeine being one of them, is fascinating to me. I mean, it helped create the ability of the Industrial Revolution, for crying out loud. So yeah, I like it. And I also think it treats the subject treats them like the subject matter treats them very honestly, instead of just saying, this is illegal, forget about it. It's not so black and white, which I find great because it just goes to show you that kind of like the poison is in the dose, meaning you can die from consuming alcohol when statistically speaking, you're not really going to die if you take mescaline or if you take psilocybin. So we think one thing is safe and the others aren't. And it's just the notion of prohibition, the history of prohibition gets brought up. It's all very interesting to me, at least.
The history of food, the history of how human beings have made their way through the, thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, and how diets have changed and the hunter-gatherer stuff. I've read quite a few books kind of along those lines. The coffee thing really intrigues me. Now, I'm one of those people, I have not drank coffee for 25 years, not caffeine. I like the flavor of coffee and I do decaf on occasion, but people are all in about coffee. They're very serious about coffee. You look at companies like Nespresso. I was in the mall a week ago, and there's this beautiful multi-million-dollar store dedicated to coffee machines and the little pods that are like little packaged jewels. And they have this recycling program. You can put them in a bag and seal it up and mail it, because they took a lot of grief early days for throwing those metal pods into the garbage with the caffeine grounds in them, coffee grounds. So I know, are you guys like over the moon coffee people? Like, are you like hardcore? Okay.
I'm more of an espresso, not a Nespresso, although an espresso does actually do a nice job at pouring a shot. But espresso, I love espresso. I have a machine and I have like 3 every day, 4 sometimes. I am a huge caffeine fanatic.
What happens to you when you don't have it?
I'm groggy. It really does make a difference. I also think it's just part of my routine. Like, wake up, have a coffee, I can operate.
Well, and he brings this up. So this notion that we have to go off of it and that it's a bad thing for you is completely unfounded. And so some people, sure, personally, like maybe you find it makes you jittery or it doesn't work for you. And that's totally fine. And some people are recommended against it if you have heart issues. So certainly this is like a, specific to you type of thing, but it isn't this blanket, it's terrible, everyone should go off of it. And he went off of it for the purpose of writing this chapter in the book. And he said that he wound up going back on it and that people would reach out to him and say, oh my gosh, you'll be so happy to know I went off of caffeine. And he was like, why? I actually think it's really helpful for people. It dusts off your brain. It can increase your ability to focus. And it has been increasing people's productivity essentially since the Industrial Revolution. Again, you just can't have too much of it.
Well, I mean, the amount of money that people spend on coffee is every year it increases in how many hundreds of billions of dollars coffee generates globally, not only for the people growing it or whatever, but I have friends that are doing 4 or 5 coffees a day, and they're doing it at reputable, expensive boutique coffee shops that are charging $5-6 for a latte or whatever. It's a lot. Like I just was jittery when I did it. I'm super jittery. I wasn't sleeping well. So for me, but then I know people that have a fully leaded coffee at 9:00 at night, playing a card game, and they go to sleep. They put their head down and I'm just like,
I don't drink coffee at night.
No, I couldn't do that really either. I mean, maybe I could. I'm tired enough from waking up at 4:30 in the morning every day that I might be able to. I need it. It dusts the cobwebs. It dusts the cobwebs off my brain. I find it helpful. I'm one of those people that enjoys it. And I've always found it a bit mildly irritating and judgmental when somebody would be like, oh, you need coffee every day? Oh. I was like, all right, well, great. Good for you that you don't.
You need food every day. You're right. Life is difficult enough as it is. And I think if you find things that you enjoy, and for God's sakes, have a cup of coffee, a great cup of coffee, and having that moment of contemplation where you just sit and drink it and enjoy that moment in your day, I think it can be a very meditative time. I say, hell yeah, take those 10, 15 minutes, recharge yourself, take some pleasure, take some time to enjoy what you're doing. If I have time, I'll ask Anthony Q. Farrell if he drinks coffee, but we may not because we have a lot to talk about. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. Don't go away. We have such a great guest coming up. And stay with us.
Not to freak you out, but things go wrong all the time. Accidents, flooding, fires, it's life. Crap happens. That kind of stuff can be hard to control. But what you can do something about is how you deal with it. For me, the trick to avoiding getting overwhelmed is having a plan. This is one of the reasons why I've partnered up with Intact Insurance, who know exactly where to start when something goes wrong. They're here to help and talk you through every step. First step, check out their great claims hub at intact.ca/claims to see how they can help you make the best out of a bad situation.
As promised, Anthony Farrell is with it. Could you like your initial in there, Anthony? Anthony?
Sure, yeah, put it in there. I can explain what the initial is later.
It's Q, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anthony Q. Farrell is here. Anthony is a writer, a creator, a producer, I guess. He is a visionary. And I'm happy to say that he is a colleague of mine now. Anthony has written on a lot of shows. One I'm going to throw out there right now just to pique your curiosity. The Office, seasons 4 and 5. Anthony was involved in writing with that. He knows everybody. He's hanged out. He's hanged out with, Mindy and Jenna. And Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Anthony Q. Farrell, go tell me what the hell.
Oh, the Q is actually, there's actually no Q. My middle name is actually Christopher.
I like Anthony Q. Farrell, though.
Me too.
There's something that it just feels like it sets you apart.
I agree. One of my friends, Shane Carty, many years ago, he used to call me Anthony Q. Farrell, man of the people, like John Q. Public.
Yeah.
And I liked it, so I started using it for my stand-up. I was like, Anthony Q. Farrell, and then when I started writing, I kept it, and then it just stuck, and I just kept it as a stage name. My mother who loves the name Christopher, would laugh at me and be like, "That's not your." She would tell people. That's why I have no problem telling people now it's not a real initial, because my mom has already told everyone. She's like, "His name is not Christopher. His name is Christopher."
Well, you're disappointing your mama. I hope you're happy now. Hope you're happy.
I have to disappoint her in some ways. I mean, I'm her favorite, so I have to disappoint her in some ways, so to even the playing field for my brother and sister.
How has stand-up helped you in the world of television? Because that's where this all started.
Yeah, stand-up, not improv. The thing specifically that stand-up helped me with was finding my voice. I started doing stand-up when I was at the Humber Comedy School. I went to Queens, did drama and math, that old thing, and then
drama and math.
Yeah, that's my degrees in drama and math.
Okay, that just sounds bizarre, but keep going.
My mother and father are both they're both accountants. So I was good at math, so I did the math for my parents and I did the drama for me. And then after Queens, I went to Humber Comedy School for that they had a comedy program, and then that's why I started doing stand-up. And the interesting thing, it took a while, but when you're on stage, I was so used to acting and being characters and doing different things as different people. And then when you're on stage in the microphone, it's you and talking to people. And it took a while for me to realize I didn't have to be someone else when I was on stage. I could just be myself, because people found me funny. They found me intriguing and kind of like a cool guy. So I was like,
yes.
Just trust that. So then it helped me to find and figure out my voice. And then that set me up to, when I was writing sketches and then TV shows and all those things. It was very, very useful for me as a tool.
So you're writing, and Adam, jump in here, because Adam is a massive Office fan. So he was so intrigued when everyone reads a person's resume, when you have that kind of success and when you have experience in a show that is a global phenomenon, people are like, what the heck? What? Tell me everything. What? So Adam, I'm going to let you ask Anthony Q. Farrell like a question or two, because I just feel like it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Here we go. Is it a collaborative process with the writing? So when you're working with the actors, do you throw back and forth ideas?
Absolutely. It's especially with the writers, a lot of the actors being in the writers' room. It was very much like back and forth. Like, we obviously had very specific scripts, very strong scripts that had been poured over by a bunch of the writers already. So when we got to the stage, they were already in really good shape. But there's always time, with that schedule, there was always time to play. So we would get the way it's written, and then there would be time, once the actors had a sense of the scene, they would just kind of go for it. And then I just remember in one of the episodes that I wrote, Employee Transfer, there's a beat where Dwight and Andy are kind of going at each other, and they're in the conference room and they're interviewing each other because Dwight's saying he wants to go to Cornell. And during the scene, Dave Rogers, who was directing it, they started pulling at the table, and I was like, oh my gosh, get them to pull at the table even more and see who can win that battle. And then they just kind of went for it, and that happened because they started something, and then I added to it, and then they added to it, and we kind of went back and forth. And then it's one of my favorite scenes where they're just going Amazing. Back and forth, and then I just pulled that table into the corner, and it's like that, thank you very much, thanks for coming in, or whatever it was. And then it was just it was great. So a lot of playfulness on that set, which was great.
Did you ever sit in Michael Scott's chair?
Absolutely.
At his desk?
Absolutely. Because whenever, you're always there when, sorry, Steve, I'm sure a lot of people have done this, but you're always there when other people aren't there. As a writer, you're there when people are not around. So you kind of walk around the set, so I've sat in that seat many times.
That's super cool. I think Steve Carell is hysterical. He's one of my favorites.
And on top of that, he's one of the nicest people in the world. I always tell people that set was incredible to work on because, when you work on a set, it comes from the top down. Greg Daniels was humble, nice. Steve Carell, humble, nice. And because they were excellent, everyone else was excellent as well. So I can't.
It comes from the top too. And I'm sure things like that resonate with you because now you're embarking on your own show. You're embarking on this absolute adventure. And I want to get to that because I want to talk about Overlord and the Underwoods, which is a co-pro, I think, CBC and Nickelodeon, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and also BYU TV in the States.
Love that. Yeah. So walk us through this premise. I want to tell you, it's been a joy spending time with you this last 8-7 weeks. and being able to play a little tiny part of ROFL, the little sidekick robot. I know this seems out of context, but tell us about the show that you've created and what your inspiration was for it. And obviously, it is the antithesis to The Office and sort of that. So you are stretching yourself out here, Anthony.
It's important to stretch, I've been told. So I think the show, it's co-created by myself and Ryan Leesbrock. Ryan actually had the initial idea. He works for Cloudco in the States. And he just wanted to throw back to the old like Alf days, Mork and Mindy, where there was a cool sci-fi comedy premise. And his company and Marvel Media came to me to develop the series. And then that's when we kind of filled out the world. And the basic premise is Overlord is the second worst villain in the entire universe. And he's in witness protection on Earth with his 7 cousins once removed, the Underwoods. They're a lovely family on Earth. There's nicest family on Earth, and this evil. So it's kind of like Darth Vader's in witness protection. So that's the premise of the series, and we have a lot of fun with Overlord going.
Do you ever?
Yeah, and ROFL is Overlord's robot butler who wants more from that relationship than Overlord wants. I think ROFL would love to be Overlord's best friend, but Overlord doesn't have best friends. He's too cool for that. And I got to say, I've also really been enjoying having to get to spend time with you, Jen, because you've been so excellent. You're so excellent in the show. You bring so much to it. I get excited every time I see it.
Well, when you have good writing, I'm telling you, and it's like singing a really, really well-written song. You just, if you have a bad song, you can have Streisand singing it, you can have Ariana Grande, and you cannot feel the song lift off the ground. I mean, you could have Adele sing a bad song, and a bad song is a bad song. I should probably say there are no bad songs, but you know what I'm saying. So when you have really clever, and I'm going to use the word because it's exactly what it is, the humor is clever, and you guys have to straddle this chasm of entertaining adults and entertaining kids. And there's so many nuances in there that go over kids' heads. And because as I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, I mean, there's so many little innuendo bits, but the adults get it. So they're interested. They got a dog in the hunt, and the kids are like completely entertained, but they don't necessarily go down that road. Like, what an art form. The writers are excellent. The cast has been excellent. We've all been, one of the things I say, like, let's try and make ourselves laugh. And then the kids will laugh because it's funny and it's physical and all that sort of, but also if we can make ourselves laugh, then we'll be making parents laugh as well. So that's been the key. A lot of laughter in the writer's room. I'm talking with Anthony Q. Farrell, who is about to launch a wonderful show called Overlord and the Underwoods. He's with us today on the Jann Arden podcast. We're going to be right back. And I know Adam has more questions for him, as I do. Don't go away.
The Underwoods, the fam of the hour. Hollow Bay's finest, Weeper, Willow, Jim, and Flower. Things were all good, every day was the same. Then ding dong, their lives all changed. Second most wanted in the cosmos. Sold all his bars cause the space feds were too close. No more running around crushing lives at will. It's witness protection, sorry that's the deal. A fall from grace for someone so celestial. Now they got a cuz who's extraterrestrial. He's super evil and they're super good. It's Overlord.
Hi folks, we're back with Anthony Q. Farrell, who's got a magnificent show. And this is going to be an exciting time. How long have you been working on Overlord and the Underwoods? Like from the time that conceptualized and writing it and casting it, I think people are so curious. How long do these shows take to put together?
They take, so this one in particular, I
started in the 50s.
Yeah, started. It was all 3 when it was this one, January 2017.
Oh my good Lord. Come on.
Yeah. January 2017 is when I started working on this. And then from there, it was developing it. And then we got some money to write a script. So I wrote a script and then we sold it. We actually initially sold it to Hulu. Hulu bought it initially. But then Disney took over and they weren't sure how they were going to use Hulu yet. And we didn't want to wait around to figure it out. So we were like, we're going to keep moving. So we ended up.
But we're going to keep your money.
Yeah. We're going to keep your money. So we ended up going, CBC wanted it and Nickelodeon wanted it. And And then we brought on BYU TV, and then there's other partners as well that have. Those are the 3 creative partners. They all gave me notes and everything with CBC, Nickelodeon, and BYU TV. And there's a bunch of other people who have bought the show who are going to be doing it second run in a bunch of other regions. Some like ITV in the UK, but some of them I can't talk about yet because they haven't announced.
How hard is it to please everybody? How hard is it when you do have those partnerships where people want to weigh in on the scripts, they want to weigh in on the storyline, and you as a writer and a creator, how obstinate are you? And like, it's an art form probably to feel like people have, been in the parade too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Taurus too, so I'm pretty stubborn. But the thing that I'm doing this boot camp for showrunners right now, where I'm teaching other mid-level and upper-level writers how I showrun and how other people do it. So they get a sense of how the job works. And one of the things I talk about is setting yourself up for success. So yeah, I had 3 very different broadcasters on this show, especially. And it was a situation where, Nickelodeon obviously wants to have something that's great for kids. CBC, it was the primetime division, so they wanted stuff for adults. And then BYU TV, they were looking to do family shows. So everyone kind of wanted something different. So very early up front, I said, here's what I want from the show. Here's why it's great for you. Here's why it's great for you. Here's why it's great for you. I'm always going to get you 80% of what you need. I can't promise you 100 because I've got to do stuff for all 3 of the broadcasters. And they all understood. And from that point, we got very little notes actually on things because everyone understood what the plan was and what I was going to be doing and what I was going to be trying to make it work for them. And I just kind of set out with that goal in mind. And it worked out pretty good. Everyone's very, very happy with the series. It's just a matter of like, and then I'm very open to collaboration. Like I love when people add their own creative styles.
That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it enjoyable.
Yeah. Like I think otherwise people don't want to work with you anymore.
No,
they feel like they're doing your show instead of our show. And I'm a much more of an our show kind of guy. So I just try to. And then people, it's the reason why I think people like to continue working with me is because they're like, oh, I know that if I'm doing something with Anthony, I'm going to get to do something cool. And also he's going to listen to me because, I'm not a costume designer. I'm going to listen to my costume designer when she's telling me something about, costumes because I've not trained in that.
It's difficult working in something where everything's micromanaged. It's a very, very difficult environment when you're hired to do a job and you've got the director or the writer or one of the producers or one of the networks just saying, no, do this. I like that, but it needs to be pink. No, it needs to be blue. So I've always found that in my little world, letting people do their jobs, letting creative people do their jobs. Because at the end of the day, if everyone's doing their best, the end result is fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's way better than what I could do on my own if I was controlling everything. Yeah. What are your objectives in the boot camp, Anthony? Like, what do you want to tell these young, aspiring writers, producers, directors? What do you want them to walk away with after a boot camp?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The reason I'm doing it is because especially it's with BIPOC TV and film, so it's BIPOC writers and producers. And the reason why I'm doing it is because, especially after like the stuff that happened with George Floyd last year, there's been a lot more opportunities. Not like a ton more, but there's been more opportunities for BIPOC creators. And then what's happening is they're getting put in positions where they can be running a show, but they've never had that experience before. So they don't know anything about casting. They don't know anything about like the post-production process, about all the extra, like they're great at writing, but they don't know the other things that have to do with show running. So the boot camp is basically a way for me to say, all right, when you get the chance, here are all the things that are going to come to you. And here's the way I deal with them. Here's the way a few other people I know deal with it, just so that you're at least prepared when you get the chance so that you can put your best foot forward when you have that opportunity. Because sometimes, with BIPOC writers, you get one chance, and if it doesn't work out, it's really hard to get a second chance when you're marginalized, right? So yes. I'm trying to make sure that all these writers who are great, some of them who are in the boot camp are, right on Jann, so they're going to be, they have a great mentor in Jenica. Jenica is fantastic, right? But not every one of us gets a great mentor that gets to be around the process all the way through. So I'm hoping that in 5 years, when you see showrunners of all these different shows, this program has, built a little bit of a legacy where everyone's putting the best foot forward and everyone's getting a chance to make the best show possible
yeah. Oh gosh, absolutely. Like 5 years from now, I really do think we're going to be looking at a much different geography in television and film. Who's making it, who's writing it, who's kind of at the controls, because I think the day of the old white guy Hollywood production companies, I think that ship has sailed, and people
that's
are
the name of my production company. Old white guy production company.
Well, I like it.
Yeah, it's how I get I get a lot of calls.
But you do it tongue in cheek, and you do it in a way that's like, hey, I think we all know what this means, and I got my eye on you.
Yeah, I definitely, that is definitely not the name of my production company. Imagine it was.
I knew you were kidding. I felt like we're leading people down the garden path here because I was playing along. But I
appreciate you, because I was like, oh my God, someone's going to Google like, oh, Anthony's working on Old White Guy Productions. Let me go, and they're just going to get.
No, that name's probably already taken. It's already taken. Who inspired you growing up? Like, who were you? Who did you have your eye on, and what were you watching, and what made you have that spark in your heart that said, I can do this? Being a Black man and being, looking at the terrain out there going, I don't know about this.
I watched a lot of TV growing up. I still watch a lot of Golden Girls. I love me some Golden Girls.
I love you for that. It's my favorite. I have the candles.
It's they're so good. But I watched a lot, like anything that was on TV, I watched it back. And like a lot of like SNL. I loved Eddie Murphy. Like I would see like, it's funny because Daryl, who plays Jim Underwood in Overlord and Underwoods, he talks a lot about like, seeing a lot of his heroes. Like he wanted to be Marty McFly. He wanted to be all these things, but he never saw like a person of color in those roles. And now he's going to be the person that inspires kids to do that. For me, I just watched a lot of I soaked in everything that was comedy as a kid. And then when I started feeling like, oh, I think I'm funny too, is when I was a little kid, I would do speeches, the speeches that you'd have to go up in front of the class and do speeches. And so I started using that as like my stand-up. So one of the speeches I did when I was in 6th grade was about my Saturday nights. And I'd be like, 8:30, Golden Girls comes on. That's when I watched. And so I literally, that was the first thing that I started doing, where I was like, oh, I'm basically doing stand-up with my little speeches, and people found them funny, and they look forward to them every year. Like, what funny speech are you doing this year? And so it was, that's kind of where I started. And then high school doing theater. And I think the time I realized I was actually going to be doing it for real was I was doing summer stock in Vermont. I was doing Once on This Island in Candide.
And I would have died to see that.
It was great. And then, but my mom came to see the shows, and this is like, I was in university at the time, and she looked at me after she watched the show, and there were like Broadway actors in the shows and stuff like that. And it was really great. And she looked at me, she said, so you're doing this, huh? And I was like, I think so. And she was like, okay. And then that was like it. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing it. And then my wife, who was also from Toronto, we got married after university, and we moved to the States and then LA and everything. And it was just like, we just went for it. So
that's all you can do. You set your sights, and dreams do come true, as corny as that sounds. And I think just being persistent. Anthony Q. Farrell, I wish I could talk to you all day. I wish you so much success with the show, not just because I'm on it, because that in and of itself, it's worth tuning in for. But honestly, thank you for your efforts to promote tolerance, visibility, acceptance. Thank you for giving people a chance. You're going to inspire a whole new generation of young people coming up through a very difficult business. So let's keep in touch. Can't wait to see you. Season 2. Yes, let's do it.
Yes.
Come on. Overlord and the Underwoods, it's coming up. Check out CBC Gem. Check out their partners. I don't have all the info, but we'll try and put that up on the site. You've been listening to the Jann Arden podcast, and we're so grateful to have you, and stay in touch there, mister.
Absolutely.
Toodly-doo.